name is Chris Ruflin. I'm the host of the show. And again, today I have another good friend on the show. Surprise, surprise. I know that I say that on every show, and I'm not sure when I'm going to run out of good friends. So you might want to get used to it.
Hopefully never.
Yeah. So this is Ian Rader. And Ian has been a good friend, and we've known each other for almost a decade. I know we haven't seen each other in a couple years, probably. Something like that. You live in a different county. Rarely do I get up there. Once in a great while, I get up there. But I've got a couple friends who keep asking me to go to lunch up there, and I'm just like, I'll get there. And then you never, Lehigh is like 30 minutes away, right? So it's, I'm getting older too. It feels like you don't want to drive the far distances, bro. So, well, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on and taking some time today to share a little bit about your story and some sound advice and maybe some not so sound advice, maybe some comedy humor in here. Whoever's listening to the show, you should know that Ian is a very funny guy. And we don't know where this conversation is going to go right now, but we're going to talk a little bit about recovery. Ian is also a person in recovery, long-term recovery from substance use disorder. And recently he has been back into his writing career and written a book, The Big Bitter Book, which we'll drop some links in for this. You guys have to hear this book and read this book and see what it's all about, because it really is. It sounds weird, a big bitter book, but it's actually a personal development book, right?
I mean, I would call it an anti-self-help, but all right, listen here. So I'm a big, listen here. Okay. So I'm a big,
Let me tell you something,
right? So I'm a big Patch Adams kind of guy. Like I love to laugh as often as humanly possible, and don't take anything seriously. The Big Bitter Book, How to Stay Bitter and Resentful, is a satirical self-help book.
Is that the subtitle?
How to Stay Bitter and Resentful. If you're in recovery, if you're not in recovery, through all the reviews on it, and people have told me that it's the first book that's gotten them to actually laugh out loud. And that was the whole point of it, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a good way in, too, we'll talk more about it, but it's a good way into the population who is probably burnt out on self-help books, or the regular, like all the ones you see on my shelf here, right? Yeah. I'm big into that stuff too, and always have been. Little did I know that it was my alcoholism that really was creating these weird thinking errors that I had.
100%.
And I didn't learn that till I was 36 years old, and finally learned a bit more about the disease and got into recovery and found out that, wow, there's a whole group of people that think like I do, right? And even though we came from different walks of life, we all think the same. So I want to go back, Ian, real quick, and we'll come back to the I want to spend a book part of our call on the Big Bitter Book. I kept seeing you like my posts, actually, and I was like, what is this Big Bitter Book thing? And I clicked and I saw your picture. I'm like, oh, that's Ian. And so I want to learn more about that project. But let's talk first about recovery. So a lot of the people that are listening to the show, it comes down to a few different categories. I mean, really the show's about overcoming obstacles. Yeah. And I have a lot of recovery based guests on the show, because one of the hardest obstacles I think anybody can ever face is getting sober and staying sober, especially if you have substance use disorder. And so there's going to be people listening to this that maybe haven't found recovery yet. So we talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to get help if you need it. We're going to have family members listening who have somebody close to them who's struggling with addiction and it just doesn't make sense to them. And so I like to give some insight into how we think and what those thinking errors are. And then we're going to have a group of people who are in recovery, who might hear something new, and it might be some little key points they can use towards their own recovery and own journey and help them along. So go back. I want you to go back with me to share with me a little bit about, do some Zen.
Let me get in.
Share a little bit with me about going back to like early childhood and before you used, and we'll talk about what that looked like, Did you feel different as a kid?
100%. And I can't, I had a very normal childhood, great family dynamic, nothing too out of the ordinary there, but as far back as I can remember, the way I thought in hindsight, kind of looking back, it was just riddled with fear and resentment, even before I knew what kind of resentment meant. I never felt good enough, and I was angry at the friend groups that I had because they weren't the popular kids, or I was angry at the popular kids because they didn't want to be my friend, and I overthought everything. Literally everything. And I'm a horrible speller even to this day, because I get into this panic cycle. If I can write and stuff, but if there's someone even remotely close to me while I'm writing something, I just forget how to spell.
Yeah.
Like that's just all of that.
That's funny coming from a writer.
I know. Well, I'm a writer, not an editor. Okay?
Yeah, there you go.
Two different things completely.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm supposed to just get the story on the pages.
Right.
But no, and it was so, and as far back as I can remember, like that was my baseline mode. And then I started messing around with the devil's lettuce when I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Devil's lettuce, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember like they have like dare programs and all the stuff.
Right. Yeah. We're around the same age group. So yeah. That was kind of the insight we got into drugs and alcohol as kids was the dare program, which really was a great way to show people
how to get
stuff and what it looked like and what you do, how you use it, you know.
And that was my first interaction of like, I went to the dare programs. I heard all the adults talking about how that stuff is bad. And then I tried the devil's lettuce and I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Right.
These guys have been lying to me my whole life. Like, if this thing was so bad, why does it fix all my problems?
Right.
And then I started becoming a proprietor of the devil's lettuce at a pretty young age.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think we've all, I mean, that was my drug of choice originally was marijuana. And, so yeah, you kind of become like a connoisseur fairly quick, right?
And I was helping friends out. And then I instantly, because I was the dude, I was the plug, right? I got invited to parties. Girls started to like me and I was popular. And I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like my social anxiety's gone. Like it was wonderful, right? And then, during this time, I got great grades. I was on academic decathlon. I always wanted to be a writer at a young age, right? I was in theater arts classes, all the other fun. So I had a lot of extra things going on. And then I ended up getting expelled in junior high for I was the plug in junior high, right? So someone ratted me out and I got expelled. And then I went to I had to go to a different junior high where I was like the bad kid. And junior high kids, all these rumors followed me to this new junior high.
Right.
So everyone's like, oh man, that dude Ian, I heard he did this and I heard he was crazy and blah. And I loved it.
Right. And now you're getting all the attention.
And I now had to live up to the rumors about me. So I really was like, okay, like here we are, right? And so just kind of nothing really crazy though. But then I found painkillers. I think around 15, 16 years old. And that did something for me that nothing on earth could have done for me.
What did that do? Talk about that for a minute. Because I think, it's hard to explain, but I think for those people out there that are maybe just stuck drinking and alcohol is their vice right now, it is, it's a bit different for those that are using drugs, even though it's all the same thing and it's all, changing or mind altering substances. There's different levels of of how buried that tick of addiction gets in there. And pain pills has become this, global, I won't even say nationwide, but global epidemic. And now you have things out there that's even stronger than fentanyl. Fentanyl is being put into every, drug on the planet, including marijuana. Right. It was a few years back. I had I don't know if I should even say this on the show, but I had this contact because I was with young people in recovery, right?
Yeah.
And they were with the DEA. And what they would do is the news sometimes would ask me to come on and talk about different feeds they got from the DEA. Yeah. And they got one time where it looked like a piece of marijuana, but it was actually fake. And it was just completely laced with fentanyl and put out there just for destruction, really,
Well, and that's where, so like in this time, alcohol was riddled throughout all that. Still drinking at a young age, like all this stuff. But I had this concept of like, if I could just get the right cocktail of substances, like my life is complete. Yeah. Right. And so when we talk about painkillers, right, it healed a physical pain that I didn't even know I had. Like I felt like I could breathe for the first time in my life. Like that sigh of relief that you get at the end of the day after a long day, right?
Right.
That's all I ever wanted. And since my main level of operating was fear-based, resentment, and just overthinking everything, I started introducing these substances into my life, and I could just feel like I could take a deep breath for the first time in my life. And I was like, oh my God, I have reached the mountaintop.
And that's the same feeling that most of us with this disorder, whether you're addict, alcoholic, whatever you want to call yourself, it's all the same. But that's the one thing that and that's why I bring this up almost every show if I have
Yeah.
someone in recovery on, is because we feel different, right? For what we call a normie, and that's not to make fun of anybody, but if you're a normie, it just means that you can like order a beer and a lot of it's still left. And to us, we're sitting there going, if you're thirsty, drink some water. Why'd you just waste that beer?
What are you talking
And there's a whole bunch more behind the counter. And one is never enough, and 1,000 is too many type of a deal.
Yeah.
Or never too much enough, rather, and one is too much. But we all have that same feeling, and normies just don't get that, right?
Thank God
they get the euphoria, they get that type of a feeling, but it's not the thing where it's like we finally feel normal and okay with ourselves.
Well, I have normal friends in my life, right, where they'll drink a glass of wine or something like that. And they're like, oh, I can't drink too much, it makes me sleepy. And I'm like, really? And that's kind of like the fundamental difference. And, you know, everything we talk about is based off my own experience. I don't want my experience to influence other people's journey into recovery. Please do your own research, find out different pathways, all of that fun stuff, whatever makes sense to you. That's what you need to rock. I'm just sharing my experience, right? And I don't want that to necessarily influence other people. But yeah, man, like I could not relate when someone's like, oh, I get too sleepy when I drink a quarter glass of wine.
No alcoholic ever said that ever.
Dude, I don't get sleepy.
Not even in the beginning.
I'm like, oh, I'm normal now.
Yeah.
If I'm normal, I wonder how normal I can be.
Yeah.
And so I'll just like, I need to run away from me. I will blot out my existence, right? Like I need to run as far and fast from what's in here as quickly as humanly possible. Because I don't have a drug or alcohol problem, right? I have a living a life that works problem.
Right. Yeah, I talk about that a lot too. Yeah. It's, you know, what I say is it's a sober disease.
Yeah.
So when you take away the substances, the drugs and alcohol, you would think that that's the problem. And this is where family members of an addict and alcoholic get really confused, because they go, why can't you just stop? Number one. And if you do stop, why do you still interact this way? Why do you still work this way? And we have these same, you know, thinking errors that kind of run through the same type of a thread, but it's a sober disease. So when you take away the drugs or alcohol, whatever that solution is to feel okay, we now don't have that solution. And we're stuck again like you were before use, feeling resentful, feeling like you don't fit in, feeling like all these things, right? And I know that normies feel these things too once in a while, but the difference is
they don't implode their life.
They don't implode their life, and they don't keep running it over in their head a million times. Right. I mean,
the best analogy, because I've worked with a lot of things, and I always get asked that, like, they just don't understand it. And the best way I've been able to describe it is, let's say, because everyone can understand the idea. Let's say you were really sick, right? Like you just didn't feel right. You were always tired. You're always like, you just couldn't, something just didn't feel right. And so you go to your doctor like a normal person would do. You describe your symptoms, and the doc goes, hey, you know what? We have a trial medication that might help. And you say, dude, doc, I will take anything. Like, I will try anything. I just want to feel normal again, please. And so the doc gives you this trial medication, and guess what? It works. It works amazing. You feel better than you ever felt in your life, and you're trucking along, you're going to work, and you're going family outings, and things are great. And then 6 months later, the doc calls you up and says, hey, a new study came out that trial medication that we've been prescribing you is probably going to kill you. There's been massive side effects long term. It's not, we need to get you off of this, and we need to try something else. So you go, oh yeah, I don't want to die.
Right.
No, yeah, please, doc, let's. So you wean off that, and then you try other things, and nothing works.
Right.
He's prescribing you this, you're trying these little things, blah, you're doing all these other things, and nothing works. And you're like, doc, please, can I get back on that other medication? Like, I just want to feel normal again. Nothing else is working. That was the only thing. But he says, no, like, that thing will kill you. And you say, at this point, I don't care. I just want to feel normal.
Feel okay.
If it takes 10 years off my life, honestly, at this point, it's freaking worth it. And the doc goes, no, you can't have it. It's illegal now. So now what happens? Then you're walking down the street, and some guy goes, hey, you know that miracle pill that you were on? Like, yeah, like, well, I got some of it, fell off the truck. And you're like, dude, yeah, like, please, man. Yeah, like, I robbed a pharmacy or whatever, and I got a grip of it, right?
Right.
So now no longer can you go to your doctor to get it, but you found that same solution on a street level base, and you are so hungry to feel normal that is your new normal. And you're like, the pros outweigh the cons at this point, because you're like, I just want that deep breath. I just want to feel normal. And so I know this is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm hoping that anyone who isn't like touched by a substance abuse disorder, an alcohol disorder, or whatever the case, whatever your thing is, I hope you can kind of follow that track of thinking of how easy it is to like, you just want to feel normal, and you will go to any lengths to do it, even at the detriment of yourself, your loved ones, no matter. At the end of the day, people just want to feel okay.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy to lay it out there for somebody to help understand addiction.
Yeah.
And the depths it does take you.
Yeah.
And that can start with some pain pills that you have for a surgery.
Start with anything.
You know, and that's what happened. That's how this opiate epidemic happened, is they were getting overprescribed, as we all know. And a lot of people were,
we won't get into it.
We won't get into the politics, but I'm with you. Yeah, I know. We're both conspiracy theorists, so you don't have to.
Not even conspiracy.
Yeah,
at this point.
Right. True. You're right. Okay, but you know, that's how it started for a lot of people. And then you can develop substance use disorder. It doesn't have to be hereditary or something you're born with. You can develop it simply by overusing and overpartying, and a lot of people go that route too.
Well, and people go many different routes: sex addiction, eating disorders, self-harm. Like they just pick the route that is, I don't want to say easiest, but like it makes the most sense at the time, and then they get the desired result, which is the deep breath moment of, okay, I'm okay for a second, right? I'm in control. I'm okay. And so even if it's sex addiction, like anything can evolve into an addiction, food, whatever, right? And it's all about, and if you're falling in any of those categories, like, please do due diligence, seek a doctor, a therapist, group therapy, like whatever it is, like try everything until you find the mode that works for you.
Yeah. And I like that you brought that up earlier too. For people listening, is, we talk about finding your tribe. It may not be a 12-step based program. It might be something more, Buddhist based recovery. There's all kinds of programs. And the one thing I used to say a lot, and still do say a lot, maybe not as much because I'm not involved with young people in recovery anymore, was just, we don't really care how you recover
if your quality of life
is better. Right? We just care that you do recover.
And I want to preface this because I know I am part of a 12-step fellowship. That's how I found my personal recovery. I still am part of an anonymous programs, 12-step fellowship, stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't want my experience to influence the way someone else finds help. Right.
Yeah.
Like if they want to ask me my opinion based off my experience, like I'll tell them what worked for me. And outside of that, everyone needs to make their own informed decisions based off their
and at the end of the day, you can't force someone to get sober either, and you can't suggest, this is the only way to get sober, right? There's that conversation.
The more I force someone, I don't know about you, but I have an inherent problem with authority. If you tell me that I need to do something for a desired outcome, I will try 1,000 different ways to get to that desired outcome just to prove you wrong.
And that yet again is another, alcoholic symptom, right? And that's going to be there whether you have a drug or drink in your body or not. And that's one thing that's important to remember for anyone listening, is that the operation of our minds is completely and totally different.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard for a friend or a family member of one of us to understand what is going on, because they can't put themselves in those shoes because they don't think that way, right?
The perspective is so like, all right, everyone on the planet has different fingerprints. I don't care if you are a twin or whatever. Everyone on the planet has different fingerprints. That means also our perspectives of reality are different for everyone because like I'll be 35 next month, right? So I have 35 years of experience in my life that has shaped the way that I perceive the world, right? That means my perspective of the world, even if we are looking at the exact same thing, I could perceive it in a different light. And that's why everyone's unique experiences play in to how they perceive the world and what may or may not work for them in a specific situation, right?
Right.
So that's why I pound and hound of like, yo, do your own due diligence, find your tribe, find out what works for you, because what worked for me might not even phase you. Like, who knows? I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a therapist. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the best thing you can say too, is just to talk from your experience, and that's where people can get some hope. I mean, because there's a hope and a way out. So
Yeah.
you get involved at 12, 13, Devil's Lettuce. And when did your addiction stop when you got into a full recovery? How old were you?
Oh man, I was 25 when I got sober. And between that and that, so, oh man, like I had amazing opportunities in my life. I studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts for a summer program. And that's like, this is where we talk about my book, right? And why it's such a big deal to me is because like I always wanted to be a writer, an actor.
Right.
That was kind of the trajectory of my life. And I got into the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts for the summer program. I was trying to go to the master's program, and everything just seemed like it was aligning.
Yeah.
And then my substance abuse disorder and everything just tanked. And like from that to I was periodically homeless in downtown Los Angeles, like seemingly overnight. Like it
Right.
wasn't like a gradual like step down
Yeah,
period. It was
yeah.
just like boom.
I mean, no one can burn down their life better and quicker
Yeah.
than an alcoholic or an addict. I mean, if there's one thing we got it down, it's that. I don't know if that's bragging rights, but it is the truth.
And it just happened so quickly. And then I was going through treatment centers, sober livings, homelessness, a lot of bad thing. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but you can,
Just an absolute hell. Yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible. And then, like, finally,
do you remember, real quick? I wanted to ask you, or actually to interrupt, because I want to go back for a second. Do you remember when you went from like using it, feeling okay, to shit, I can't stop? Did you have a moment like that?
I did, but I quickly dismissed it because I didn't want to I didn't want it to be
Don't let me believe that.
Like even my family tried to do an ad hoc intervention on me, and I was like, I don't have a problem. You guys are crazy and blah, blah, and blah, 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 blah. That's the last thing that I have is a perceived perception of control.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm not giving that up. Hell no.
Right.
And so I think I had like little moments like that, but I just quickly pushed it down inside me. And then like, months would go by and things would get worse. But like, did you ever see the movie Spun?
A long time ago.
Long time.
Yeah.
There's a scene in that movie where the two main characters, they've been driving around all over town looking for glass, right? I don't know what I can't say on here, but whatever.
Yeah.
And they finally find it, and they're spinning the pookie in the car, and they're like, I'm gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna get my kids back in my life, and I'm gonna do all these great things.
Yeah, all these ideas start coming out.
Like everything's gonna be wonderful. It's gonna be wonderful. And then you pan out, and you look at it as a third party perspective, and you're like, oh, it's just two tweakers in their car tweaking their heads off. And like that's me.
Yeah.
Like the perceived, like I'm gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be. I can figure this out. I'm gonna be okay. And I just gotta finagle and blah blah blah.
Move the characters around.
And I'll figure it out. And like that's the lie I keep telling myself in order to not even convince you, because at this point I'm just trying to convince me.
Right. Yeah, you're not really. I mean, at that point you're so stuck in self that you're not at all thinking about anybody else.
I'm so stuck in the delusion that I got this, right? And that's what led up to my sobriety. I was in a trap house in Santa Ana, and I could literally feel something just crack inside me. Like I heard it. And it was this moment of clarity where I was like, and the world just like kind of got quiet. And the noise in my head was just gone for a second. And it was like I just got out of a car crash, and like the world just stood still, and I was just looking at me like, what happened to the last 5 years of my life? And I remembered I called my sister, and at this point, my family, they loved me from a distance. At this point in my but like
they had to, yeah.
And but I remember it perfectly. Like I talked to my sister, and she heard something in my voice, like, oh, something's different. Like I'm not crying. I'm not trying to manipulate.
I think it's, it's really, and there's a moment like that for everyone I've ever met in recovery that will talk about that. But it's an energy thing, right? Like I'm a big believer in law of attraction, thoughts are things, optimism. These are all things that I not only love to live my life by, but also have to.
Yeah.
Having this disorder, it makes my life incredibly more easy to focus on the positive things than the negative, because I get wrapped up in either one of those in a bad way. But the positive, it gives me a better outcome. And I think what we experience that moment of clarity is like an energy shift, and that's what people can feel.
Dude, whatever you call it, it's it's something that only the dying can truly relate to, where it's just, and that window of opportunity for me anyways, it closes so rapidly.
Oh yeah.
It's like lightning in a bottle type stuff, that when it hits that moment of clarity, I have to move on it. I called my sister and I was like, dude, I'm ready. My only caveat, my only suggestion, can you please get me out of California? Because I was known from San Francisco to San Diego.
Right.
Like it didn't, like, I was like, you send me to Alaska, send me to the freaking moon, wherever you tell me to go, I will go. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to die. I just, please, like, get me out of here. And she conveyed to my family. And then, you know, I detoxed cold turkey at my dad's house. Super fun.
Yeah.
And it's 10 out of 10. Highly recommend, you know. and then they told me, oh, you're going to Utah. And I'm like, I don't know where that is, but I got my toothbrush. Let's go. Like, at this point, I did not care.
Right.
Like, I just saw my whole life flash before my eyes, and every wasted opportunity, everything I willingly gave up, or even the things I didn't want to give up that had claw marks on them of me trying to hold on to the perception of control or whatever, but it was ripped away from me anyways. And I was just like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah. Surrender, right?
Yeah.
You
like,
surrender
I don't know how to live.
To the fact. I mean, and it's unfortunate that for a lot of us, it has to get to that critical point where things are so bad and so painful. And what's really happened is that solution has stopped working.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it was a solution.
You're chasing that feeling of okay, and it's never going to come back the way it was in the beginning or even in the middle. And then you're at a point, at least I was at a point where, you know, I knew I couldn't stop. I knew that if I did stop, I thought if I stopped, it would be worse. I couldn't imagine being sober. That was not even, I thought all my, back when I lived in this, pretty much my dream home, and, you know, I'm peeking out of the garage, you know, watching for the CIA every day.
Because you're that important.
Yeah, because I'm that important. They're following me around with the drones. There's got to be a drone. I mean, yeah, exactly. And, really what was happening is I was in a drug-induced psychosis. So if you have any of these feelings, you know, the drugs do cause some impact on our brains. But I literally had myself convinced that, and this was to make it okay with what I was doing, I convinced myself that, oh, my neighbors probably do this too. They got something. They might smoke weed or drink alcohol or whatever it is. And the reality was, no, that did not happen. And that night when I first got arrested back in 2017, and that's what got me into recovery. I mean, there was 42 police units, police dogs, a couple helicopters, one with the news, one with
the whole shebang,
the whole thing. And they were surrounding my block because I had called and said somebody put a bomb in my house. And I had called the police a dozen times in that last year. I had called them a dozen times, and I'm living up in the hills of this nice city here in Utah. They didn't get these kind of calls from me. So I had the police convinced.
They didn't get these kind of calls.
They just didn't. And I had the police convinced that there was somebody actually after me. So when they came, they weren't coming to arrest me originally. They were trying to protect me. But then I met them out at the curb, and even the police report said I was sweating profusely, right? And super paranoid and super a mess. And I'm grateful that jail trip landed me in recovery. And, you know, the moment of clarity for me this last time, the last relapse I had, I remember I'm sitting in a hotel. I'm away from my family. No one knows where I'm at. That's intentional because at this point I figure
I'm not
the disease is going to kill me. I just thought it was going to kill me. So I'm just going to have it end here that way. And, you know, everyone will be better off, and I'll start hurting people. All of a sudden, this moment of clarity comes to me. It's a Thursday. It's like noon. You're sitting in a hotel surrounded by a bunch of bullshit. You're paranoid as hell. I had the luggage rack up against the door. Like, I mean, I'm thinking at any moment that's going to get busted in, right? And I'm in complete psychosis and paranoid. And all of a sudden I have this moment of clarity where I could see all of that from a third party view. And I took the last of what I had and the instrument I was about to use with it and dumped them in the toilet. And I picked up the phone and started calling for help. Unfortunately, I didn't learn how to call for help before a relapse that last time. I called after, but I did call, and it saved my life. And I'm grateful for that. So what got you into recovery is this whole thing. Did you end up going to like a treatment facility? Did you just go right into like a 12-step community?
Before Utah, I went through like 6 different treatment centers, a crap ton of sober livings. And, you know, I was introduced to 12-step communities, and I just, you know, I wasn't ready. You know, I just, you know, and I would have the willingness.
The words can't get in if you're not ready.
Yeah, I would have the willingness for like around 48 hours, and then that would quickly disappear because I just wasn't ready, and I had my own thoughts and perceptions still. This time around, I went to a treatment center local here in Utah, and they reintroduced me to 12-step, and they got me linked up with the people in that program and stuff, and I ended up working with a group of guys, and I was so ready for anything. That any misconceptions I had about a 12-step fellowship community or whatever, like, those were beaten out of me because I was so willing to try something new. And I didn't even believe that that process would work. I didn't care to believe. I just,
you had nothing. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
like,
go back.
my docket was very open.
Yeah, you're gonna go back to doing what you were doing. And this is the way we operate as humans. It's not an alcoholic or an addict thing. We're either motivated by pain or pleasure. And so what happens there in those moments, and people have these moments in whatever type of life you're living, whether you're addicted to something or not, when all of a sudden the pain of where you're at becomes so extreme that you'll try anything. And that's the perfect time for somebody to...
The same reason why I wanted to use substances at first.
Exactly. Isn't that crazy how ironic that is?
Dude, and
it almost reverses itself. And 100%. Then you get into recovery and you find out that life is a lot better in recovery. It's a lot... For me, I like to stay in hotels and not have to put a luggage rack up to the door. I like to be with my family traveling and having good memories and making memories.
It was the solution, just like it was the progression. First it was the substance, it was the solution. That solution became no longer viable. And then the solutions that I initially didn't want to try, I was left with no other option. And I had tried everything. Yeah. Therapy, I'd done the whole gamut.
Yeah, because typically we try everything that doesn't work for us.
Which is kind of, again, like we talk about, like, how it reverses, right? None of that stuff worked. And then I think the 12-step gave me like a great baseline, and then I just went back up the chain. Like, I had trauma that I needed therapy for. I had other
then you start peeling back the onion.
And
you start figuring out.
It was like I did a U. Like, none of this stuff worked, and then I found a base, and then all these things. Now, me being kind of more open to it, I was like, oh, okay, like, there's some other things that I needed to peel away and take a look at to grow and affect this understanding of itself, all that fun stuff, the internal crap that I just wasn't dealing with at all.
Which, if you're truly wanting to live a fulfilled life, that never stops anyways.
It was like either Socrates or Aristotle who said, like, the unexamined life is a life not worth living.
Right.
And I really wanted to examine why. Like, even my knee-jerk reactions to things, the way I perceive things,
right?
And that was just me, right? I fell in love kind of with that process, and that's kind of what led me into the me today. Hello.
Yeah, so let's shift into that. I heard a lot of good stuff already that I'm sure is going to help people out that are listening. Let's shift out of that and go into kind of what you've done. So when we first met, you had a company, No One Down.
I'm actually wearing one of my old
Oh, you are
shirts.
wearing one of them.
Yeah.
I just found those. That's crazy.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
found the ones. And if you guys can't see, it says everything or everyone
can help someone.
Everyone can help someone. And I that was my favorite shirt for my first few years in recovery. I wore it all the time because what we find out is that solution to feeling okay is helping others. And a big part of what this show is about is helping others. I'm not doing this so I look good on camera. I'm not doing this so I can go be famous. Thanks. But I'm doing it so that somebody might hear a short of this or a clip or something pops across their news feed and they go, wow, okay, let me listen to this. And then they start getting help and learn how to overcome obstacles. That's what this is all about. It's called the Let's Do More show because I think we can all do more in a lot of areas in our life. And it's not about being busier or more productive or doing more at work or more at home. It's not that. It's doing more in living as a decent human being that's contributing to humanity.
Human beings are born with the inherent ability to want to help people, whatever part of the spectrum that's on, right? Holding a door.
Then our experiences either block us out from that or
holding a door open for someone, like just something like, oh, like we love to teach people things. Like, oh, if I'm really good at something and you're like, dude, how are you so good at it? Like, oh, dude, yeah. Like, it's just, it is, no matter what, like, people say or people do or what, like, other outside sources would have you believe, people are born with the want to help other people, sometimes at our detriment, but
there's the codependent part of it.
And that's what I mean of, like, everyone can help someone, like, no matter how big, how small. Like, if we just do like a little action every day, like, just put some good out in the world.
Right. This it's almost been 2 years now since this happened. I had a near-death experience. I was intentionally going to overdose and not come back. And that wasn't the first time I had tried something like that. I have to disclose I haven't had those thoughts, since then.
My God. Yeah.
But that was the plan that day, and it worked. And I remember, I had the whole floating over my body experience. I went to the other side, family members, different things happening there, family members I didn't know. And I had myself convinced this was also a drug-induced psychosis for about a month and a half, until I talked to a family member and mentioned somebody on the other side I was communicating with in that moment, that the way they looked, it was my mother. And she said, that's your great, 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 great grandma. You never knew her. But I could tell you what she was wearing and what language she was speaking. And, coming back from that, one lesson that I learned, and I was given a choice to be able to come back or not, and to come back in different timelines, which was crazy, because I'm a big believer in quantum physics. And now it's actually proven that some of these things exist. Yeah. It's no longer a hippy dippy, mushroom type moment.
I mean, it might be.
It might be. But I was offered a chance to come back to different timelines and show what they look like. And the one thing I was left with is that we're here, on this planet to learn how to be more loving, and to the words weren't like the same words we use here. Donate to humanity is what I heard, but it's more of like, leave it in a better place, right?
Yeah.
Help mankind.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be some major thing.
No.
However, I think your book is a huge thing to bring up at this point, because, if anything causes people to want to change for the positive, I'm all about. I know people say you can't change people, and I never want to try or be perceived as trying to change somebody, but I'm all about rooting for you if you're wanting to change for the positive, if you're wanting to get rid of an addiction, if you're wanting to learn how to be more mentally strong, if you want to get back in shape, if you're, setting goals, starting a business, running a business, making it successful or not. These all take a certain amount of mental fortitude, and you can't do it as the person you were yesterday.
Yeah.
You have to grow into something new, and you continue to grow. So how did this idea of this big bitter book, go into as much as you can on it. I want to spend the last little bit of our time here going over this, and
Yeah. So I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we were having a conversation regarding recovery and stuff. And he said something to what my reply was. Oh, so you mean like the opposite of everything we try and do here in recovery? And it clicked into my head. I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I ran home and I started writing the opposite.
Which many of us who get into recovery do the opposite of what's suggested.
I need to preface with, if you don't have a sense of humor, don't buy this book. Like, if sense of humor just flies over you, like, I even have like a little line at the bottom of the book that if you identify with any part of this book, you have problems. And the sole purpose of it is just to make you laugh and potentially make you think of like, man, like, do I do some of this stuff in my day-to-day life? And if so, maybe I can laugh at it, not take it so seriously, and maybe potentially work on it,
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's a great reverse way to getting people to do that. So, tell me a little bit about, you don't have to share the whole book, of course. And for those of you listening to the show or watching it, we'll get some links put into the show notes and stuff, so you're able to go and find this book. I'm excited. I'm excited to go through and read it myself. What are some of the concepts, and like, what are some of the things? How does one stay resentful and bitter?
Yeah. So step one is, I'm not the problem, you are. That's step one for sure. Is everything that you come to the realization that this whole time it was everybody else's fault. And now it's
no reason to look at you and change anything.
No. Why would you do that? That looks way too much like growth, man. Like, why would you want to do that? And then you have to dissect that.
Right.
You have to dissect and really not forget all the slights that has ever happened to you since the early 90s.
Right. And if you have this disorder, you are already naturally going to do that.
Yeah.
That's why we have to learn that service to others, right?
Not according to my book.
It has to happen. Not according to your book. I know. So step one, that's hilarious. I love that. What's step number two?
I won't go into all of it, but it goes into the reflection of, okay, I'm not the problem, you are. And so how do I dissect how these other people truly are the problem? Am I willing to give my life over to my new higher power, which is Netflix and takeout? Like, I'm, these are the things that are
social
tangible.
media.
Yeah,
I hate to say, unfortunately.
Media, anything that keeps me from actually doing some work on myself, things that blot out my existence, whether that's substance or, social media or whatever, something that keeps me from having to look at me, because I am a perfect person in all my horrible glory. And you know what? It's everyone else's fault. And then from that, you make a list of everyone's who I actually have like a big bitter 4-step in there so that you can fill out and be like, this dude, he stole my lunch money in junior high. And on a scale of 1 to 10 on the blame map, he is a 10. Right. I'm going to write his name down and remember it. And I will find out the best way to do petty revenge against this person.
And that's really what, resentment and bitterness,
yeah.
Revenge, anger, jealousy, all these emotions that I say live on the left side of life. Some of them serve a necessity, and there's certain healthy amounts of some of those things. But for the most part, these things are crippling to you, not the other people that you think it's their fault. You're hurting yourself.
Well, and too, like,
right? It's like, what do we say? It's like holding or drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies, right?
Well, and too, amongst all the other myriad of things that I am, like, I'm also a rageaholic. Yeah. Like, I love chaos. Yeah. I love chaos. I love any reason not to look at me, right? And if I can go down the rabbit hole of why it's your fault and not mine, and how all these things, right? Then it's just more reasons of I don't have to take responsibility for my thoughts and actions. I don't have to look at, what I'm, because at the end of the day, I can't control other people.
Yeah.
I can't.
Try as hard as you want. You can
try as hard as I want. So no matter what other people think, say, and do, that's none of my business.
If you ever figure out how to control somebody, they're going to resent you for that.
100%. Because and so that's where, like, my
we all have parent issues.
Oh, yeah.
Daddy, mommy issues come from that. Yeah.
My life today is, I try to, I'm a big practitioner of my version of prayer, my version of meditation, things that I try to bring about peace in the present moment, not necessarily happiness, because with happiness on the other spectrum of that is anger, sadness, like whatever, right? Happiness kind of comes and goes. But even if I can be okay with what's around me, then my mind doesn't click into that fight or flight mode. How do I solve this problem? How do I feel okay? How do I get the deep breath moment and all that other fun stuff? And so that's kind of the rabbit hole of my personal recovery that I went down that works for me. And that's been a game changer, right? And I always love hearing about new developments of new practitioners, whatever on the spectrum that is. Maybe it might be for me, maybe it might not be. But at least, like, if someone ever comes to me saying, like, what do I do? I'm going to be like, I don't know what you should do, but I have a long ass list of things that we can try that hopefully the desired effect is your quality of life improves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, mindset in this life is everything. Yeah. I started my first business at 18. I'm 46 now. I've had many businesses in between then and now. And the first business I started was heavily involved in self-improvement. We all had a lot of mentors. We did a lot of, we called them education programs. They were really little 3-day motivational, make sales type deal. Looking back at that, there's never been a time in my life where I couldn't look back and say my higher power had a play in that. And now I can. And the older I get, the more I can look back on all the moments. They all make sense. They never make sense in the moment. I get a little bit short. I'm shortening 100%. That timeline a little bit, but I remember, when I was 36 and got sober for the first time, and I learned about how, as an addict and an alcoholic, I naturally was pessimistic. My natural state was resentment. My natural state was all these things that I didn't love, but I finally figured out why I had to work so hard at thinking positive and why I ended up falling in love with the idea, because it was almost like, I don't want to say it was like another drug for me, but in some ways it made me feel okay when I could find the gratitude in something, or find the silver lining, or, try to find the hope sometimes is all you can do. And that is what was able to carry me through a lot of these difficult moments in life. Most of them, surprisingly, revolve around addiction, burning my life around, losing my first marriage, a lot of things that were painful to go through in the moment. But as I look back on those now, I can see how they were all things that were meant to be, right?
And great experiences. And that's another thing I want to touch on is, so next month I'll be celebrating 10 years, right?
Right.
And I say
a decade. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God. It's so crazy to think about, right? And the other part of that is, a decade doesn't mean that I have a moral authority. I have any sort of authority, right? Time, the only thing time has afforded me is the ability to have gone through a lot of crap sober, stayed sober through it, and was able to learn from it. I'm no better than anybody. I'm no worse off than anybody. Like, that's literally all it means.
Right.
And I see, and so just because someone has a lot of time, like I always look at the quality of life index regarding that.
Right. Because you can be sober for a long time and be an absolute mess.
No,
you can be
dude,
a
I'm
complete
an
dick,
absolute
complete
mess,
asshole.
man.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I like, I'm still learning how to be a person in people's situations, right? Like, I don't have, my favorite speakers in recovery are the ones who talk about, yeah, and then I got 25 years sober and I wound up in the psych ward. And I'm like, hell yeah. It makes me feel so good about myself because, you know, as someone in recovery, I get down on myself like, oh, I don't have this figured out. I'm not, you know, I'm like,
haven't arrived yet. There's
I
always a
should be
constant chase
this,
for
like,
arrival.
I should be like the spokesperson for recovery and people should look up to me, but inside I'm dying and I'm freaking out. And then it's like, I hear people talk about how they had double-digit years and either relapsed or they went to the psych ward. And honestly, it gives me that sigh of relief of, oh, thank God. Like, I don't have to have this thing figured out. I'm still susceptible to the insane thinking and like, and like everything that goes with that. I'm not perfect and that is okay. And the only thing that I can speak to is that I'm just a dude who burnt his life to the ground and found a path that worked for me. That is the only position of authority that I can have is personal experience.
Right.
And even then, like, that's not a position of authority. Like, I'm just a guy who burned his life to the ground, who's found a way of living that works for me. And I'm still just scratching the surface of it. I'm still a hot mess most of my life.
Yeah, I think it's, and the thing is like whether you,
and that's okay,
right? Whether you have, and it is okay, and you got to be okay with that, and not always be chasing. Yeah, I like to always chase the best version of myself, like my higher self. I have a very clear mental picture in my head of what that looks like, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, all that. And I'll always be chasing that for the rest of my life because once I hit a goalpost, the goalpost moves.
Yeah,
and hopefully I'm doing that at a healthy level. I never get overwhelmed or upset when things don't happen because you have fallback. But I think it's important to know, no matter who you are, to have that type of a mindset is key to life. You have to do things daily, right? It's a daily regimen, like many things we do in recovery. I write a gratitude list every single day.
Yeah.
And there are some days, listen, I'm writing it and I'm like, my pen is breaking because I'm just like, well, you know, I'm grateful for this.
Dude, that's the best though, when you can be honest with yourself.
Right. And you know, my days still go better when I've done that than if I don't do it. If I don't, like, I'm at a point in my recovery in my life that I am deadly afraid of not talking to my higher power daily and asking for support there and thanking for the blessings I have. I have to read certain meditation books because it sets my day off right. And I always hear what I need to hear. I always read what I need to hear. And then I have to do a gratitude list. There are 3 simple things. What's funny is a lot of people aren't willing to do things like that. And it feels so overwhelming and complicated because of the way society operates. It's not the normal, I would say, to start your day with a routine. But if you look at anyone who's successful in any part of their life, that's what they're doing. It's a big part of what they're doing. Not only all of it.
And that too, what you just said, it's a big part of defining what success means to the individual, right?
Yeah.
It's
not money, cars, and homes.
No,
for most of us, you know, those are fleeting.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of definitions, right? Because we talked about our perceptions are different, right? We've had extremely different life experiences driving our perception.
Right.
So that's where arguments usually come from, right? I could say a word and that word invokes something completely different in you. So me and you start arguing over semantics, stupid semantics, when we're both trying to say the same thing.
We're just triggered over a word and it's just a word.
We just have completely different experiences of that word. So that's why I always like to ask people like, okay, what's your definition? What is your definition of that? So we can try and get on an even playing field here. So maybe we can have some dialogue surrounding that. Because for me, you know, success is, I just want to be able to move through life relatively okay. Even the bad, like, I know it's not going to be every day. There's going to be bad times. There's going to be like all these things going on. But no matter what happens, and there's been some times in my sobriety where like I'm coming up on a decade, right? And I don't know what it is, but like coming up on this milestone, it's just,
you got the itch,
not even an itch, just like a flood of weird emotions of like, just like, what the hell?
It's that time. It's that illusion of time, right?
The illusion, the perception, the illusion of time, and it's not even real. It's not even tangible. Nothing in my physical world has changed at all, but I feel it. like my sleep patterns have been changing, that like my perception has been changing. And I'm certain the day I like actually hit that milestone, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll be
You'll just
totally
get through
fine.
it, and then things will be
Like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
But it's
just another day.
It's just another day, and it's just perception drives our reality, and there's been times in my sobriety where I wanted to opt out of life.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah, you don't get sober and all of a sudden everything feels good and great.
Rainbows and puppy dogs,
as I like to say,
stuff. Life gets lifey.
Yeah.
And there's been so many times where I'm just like, dude, I'm done. I'm so done, right? And I've had to lean on different tools.
Yeah, what do you do in those moments? What type of tools do you lean on?
So my version, okay, actually, and again, I always need to preface this because I hate if someone tries to take things I say out of context, right? My biggest tools have been more so on the spiritual side, right? And so prayer and meditation, my version of prayer, my version of meditation, because those are two tools that no one can take from me.
Right.
I don't need a doctor to refill that. There's going to be days where there's no phone, there's no car, there's no literature to read, there's no fellowship around me to keep me in place. There's going to be days
people may not pick up their phone.
Right? Yeah, 100%. There's going to be days where I am all alone, right? And I'm pausing for dramatic effect right here.
Yeah.
But there's days where I will be all alone in my own head. And sometimes my head is just not a good place to be. And so what I found was if I can lean on tools that I can just grab out of thin air, prayer, meditation.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And actually, I have a really cool breathing exercise that I want us to try. And I'm glad we can catch this on.
Yeah.
Can we do it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, here we go.
Totally open. Yeah.
So I want you to kind of sit up. Just kind of normal, right? Here we go. And if you're watching this at home, I want you to
Feel free to do it.
Please do this because I'm going to ask a question after this. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a deep breath down in your belly. Okay? Fill it up all the way down in your belly. And then I want you to breathe out at the bottom of your throat. Like, and then take a nice open, wide mouth breath in. Open, wide mouth breath in. You did it wrong. We're going to do it again.
I had my eyes closed. Was that part of the directions?
No, you can do it. All right. So deep belly. Breath in, and then you're going to breathe out slowly the bottom of your throat, and then wide mouth breath in. Okay. All right, here we go. Did you just yawn?
I did the first time. I did, and this time was close. Yeah.
If you did this at home, I want to. Did you just yawn? Leave a comment down on the channel if you yawn, dude. Breath work and stuff like that. So yawning, what we just did was a way to reset the nervous system, right? So if there's ever a time you feel like you can't sleep, you're running and you're just running circles in your head.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That was a huge game changer for me. Just little simple breath work like that. I yawn and I just feel a little bit tired and I'm just like, I reset the nervous system. I really want to know if you tried this at home, if you yawn. Please, I want to know. Because everyone who I've done this with, they're like, yeah, dude, I yawn. I do this a lot, like in some of my lives and stuff. I'm like, dude, I yawned. And like, yeah, I know, it's cool. And just like those little tools that no one can take from you. You don't need to go on a drive. You don't need to call anyone. You don't need you just have built in with you because there's going to be those days where you are all alone. Yeah. Right. Yep. And so
definitely those days where you feel you may not be all alone, but you may feel that way.
100 when that phone,
the perception is that
a million pounds, and you don't want to burden people with your problems. My perception is that I'm a burden, like I'm a screw up, and no one wants to hear from me. I've talked to these people a million times. They're sick and tired of talking to me. Blah blah blah. They have their own, like the self pity starts setting in, and then I isolate myself. When I get in those moments, right, I have to find a way to like come back to the present moment.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing to chat about too. Is like. So I refer to that as the message center. So all day long, we're going throughout life and we're receiving these messages from ourselves. I'm not good enough.
I can't stop yawning.
I'm too good. Yeah, you really reset the system. I'm not good enough. I'm too good, or I can't do this. Can't in my house for the most part is a 4-letter word because it is a 4-letter word, and I would much rather it is. It happens to be. So if you're against swearing, definitely pull that one out of your dictionary. But you can always say, what would it look like if I did this, or what would it look like if I could do this? Right? That
Positive
is a complete game changer
like that,
for anybody who's trying to overcome something. You're trying to overcome someone who died close to you. What would it look like for me to get through this in a little bit more of a little bit better of a way, or a little bit more fulfilling way, right? And some of that is just the natural grieving process you have to go through on that specific case. But the message center all day is like giving us this stuff.
That's what the mind does.
Right. And then you got to decide, like, what are you going to do with that? Because here's the thing. All of us have that voice inside. All of us have that shit talking voice. All of us have that. Some of us who've worked really hard on it have also a motivating voice inside. When you're in the gym and you're hitting that last rep or whatever, and you're exhausted and you don't think you can push.
Some of us have delusions of grandeur.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are in there, right? And you might tell yourself to push harder. You might tell yourself you can't do it. But the one thing we always have control over is our perception.
Yeah.
Right. It's our perception and how and how we react to that message. That's in our control. Yeah. So I can take a negative message my mind is feeding me, and I can either buy it full price and take it. Yeah. Or I can sit there and I can challenge that thought and say, well, if I was really that big of a piece of shit, would I have this person around me or this around me or this or that? Or, if I really was a loser, would I have made this accomplishment? Because you can always find something if you look. But the problem is we get so blinded by this message center, we don't look. Right.
But that's where the awareness comes in, and that's where the tools of the trade kind of kick in, right? I have to learn to become aware because, dude, oftentimes my emotions are ran off by perception of like alcoholism, the way I like to define it, which is my definition, right? You know what beer goggles are?
Yep.
Beer goggles, right? For those at home who don't know what beer goggles are, is when you drink a lot and you're at a bar and you think you're chatting up some really hot chick or hot guy or whatever your preference, right? You go home with them and you wake up the next day to find out they were not actually hot, right?
It's because you had the beer goggles on.
Because you had the beer goggles on, right?
Right, yeah.
So beer goggles, in my definition, is I have beer goggles on, but the lens is made up of fear, self-loathing, all these things, right? That
the negative emotions.
Yeah. So my perception of reality is driven by fear, negative emotions, anger, resentment, like all these things. And those things cause me to react different in the world than how other people perceive that information, right? So one thing that's really been helpful is staying present. And it's another exercise I really like to do is in the present bubble of time that is right now, this very second, not a second in the past, not a second in the future, present bubble of time that's right now. Tell me one problem you have.
Well, if you're really in the present moment, you can't.
That's what I mean. Like, but I got these bills. I got these, I got these
That's
things.
in the future.
Yeah. Can you pay? Are you going to pay that bill right now? This very second?
Oh, no. Second, no.
So that's a problem that you will tackle at a later date. Right. I'm talking right now. This very second. Right now. Like oh my gosh.
Do you remember, what was that movie? Was it Office Space? I think it was called, where the guy with the stapler.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he invents the jump to conclusion board.
The jump to conclusions.
And when I first got in, when I first got in recovery, I remember
jump to conclusions.
Yeah. So I have a mentor in recovery, somebody I can call and rely on for suggestions and advice and all that. And he'll often tell me when I call up with these problems or what I think is going to happen. He's like, dude, you're like 100 miles past yesterday. Like, dude, you're way out here thinking about what's going to happen with X, Y, Z. And you have no idea, number one, what's going to happen.
Yep.
And number two, you don't even have to think about that. You just need to be present and you just need to be grateful where you're at right now.
And that's the perception, right? Because, and here's the kicker. Have you ever made a decision based off fear or anger? Everyone's going to say, yes, everyone can relate to me.
Worst decisions ever.
Worst decision. Now here's the kicker. Have you ever made a decision based off fear or anger over something that wasn't even real?
Right.
A perceived like, oh, homie's talking crap about me, or I'm going to get fired, or my wife's going to like whatever. Things that you don't even have tangible evidence of that is actually going to happen, but you perceive it to be real. And then now you're making actions based off something
that's not even real.
Not
real. And this is why.
And if you're not even in recovery, I guarantee you can relate to this crap.
And this is why you can laugh at this. I can laugh at it now. This is why the CIA was after me. Because
but, I mean, there was some other things going on.
Bottom line is, people, there was no CIA after me.
Hey, they were actually after
years. For 5 years of my active addiction before I found recovery, I was stuck in drug-induced psychosis every day. I was taking apart walls in my home looking for cameras. Like,
they were actually there.
Insane things. They may have been, but maybe I thought for years, maybe I'm hypnotized to not see them, and they're just there. I could make, and then you go down to YouTube, whatever you don't pull up YouTube, because then you're just screwed.
Do not go to WebMD.
But what happens is, we have this center part of our mind that has this fight or flight mechanism, which I know everybody's heard, everyone's familiar with. Yeah. But the thing is time has changed for the human beings as a race. Meaning, when I developed and evolved that part of my brain, there were some real dangers out there, like saber-toothed tigers, right?
Yeah,
there were
this
cliffs I could,
analogy.
there were things I could fall off of. There were caves I could go into and get eaten.
Woolly mammoths
that could just stomp me out, right? And I didn't have like all the things we have today to protect us in those areas. We didn't have all the science and medicine science that we have now to get help if we're sick or injured or have a disorder of some kind. The problem is that part of our brain is still there. And so what we do
have the saber-tooth tiger.
Right. We don't have a saber-tooth tiger. So what becomes a saber-tooth tiger is your finances, your retirement, your spouse, friends or family, your perception of reality is what it comes down to. That's why I think if you want to evolve to the next level of consciousness on any level, you have to remember that's that part of your brain. And I'm not always great at remembering that in the moment, but quickly, somewhere right after, very quickly, and that gap shortens, I'm able to go, oh, this is just my
well, that's where panic attacks come, right? Because when that part is activated, we get a shot of adrenaline, like all the other chemicals, because our body is perceiving a saber-toothed tiger coming after us. So it's having a chemical response. Right. And so we're sitting.
But there is no tiger.
There's no tiger. Sitting in a chair, and then boom, shot of adrenaline and other chemicals. And that's where the panic attacks come in. That's where shortness of breath, tunnel vision, all that crap, right? And so like what I have found is if I can just push myself to do a little bit of exercise, give that adrenaline somewhere to go. Yeah. Well, especially in the moment, like I am not a gym goer. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that, but like I need to do a lot better at a lot of things. But in the moment of a panic attack where I have adrenaline just coursing through me and
move,
I have to move. Even if it's just like baby push-ups or whatever it is, like something to get the adrenaline coursing through my body to like regulate. So my heart rate is elevated for me doing exercise instead of me sitting doing nothing and just having adrenaline just
having the
hit
fear
my heart over and then bloom. And then what I find is just a couple seconds into that movement, there's the deep breath moment again, and I can like, okay, it's not that bad. I can think, and if I can think, I can calm and blah blah blah. Right? I just have to get out of that perceived saber-toothed tiger kind of a moment.
Yeah, because our brains still react the same way. And I guess you could have put two and two together if you're listening, but the reason that part of our brain did that is because that adrenaline we got, that rush of adrenaline allowed us to run our asses into some safety
from a saber-toothed tiger or fight it. Right. How froggy are we feeling today?
But the difference is if I'm future tripping and in fear over something in the future or something I didn't do right in the past, typically I'm just sitting there in stillness and I'm not moving that adrenaline.
Yeah.
And that's what causes a lot of problems, and consistently having it happen over can help cause a lot of health issues. So, well, in wrapping up, where can people go to, first of all, find this book about being bitter and resentful? How do we?
I'm so glad you asked.
Yeah.
So you can actually go to Amazon and search the Big Bitter Book, How to Stay Bitter and Resentful. I'm sure we'll have some links. Maybe right here, probably not. And I implore you to actually
at least down there,
at least down here. I implore you to actually read the reviews because they're funny as all hell, right? And or if you actually follow me on TikTok, the Big Bitter Book on TikTok, if you order off the TikTok shop, I will sign the copy for you and send it off to you.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. That's good. And I have a feeling this book is going to take off.
It's done so much better. It's already international. It's in 4 other countries outside of the United States.
So cool.
It published 3 weeks ago, and like I thought I was going to get like 10 copies sold.
Right.
And
and you told me you were just excited to be writing again, even.
Yeah, well, because I told you I wanted to be a writer, and I know we're wrapping up, but and this is actually a great wrap up point. This book is the first thing I've written in 15 years, and I was just stoked to be writing again. I really want to tell this to everybody. If you ever had a passion that life took from you, substance abuse took from you, or whatever,
trauma took from you,
anything, if you had a passion and you are relatively okay today, you're on a path of growth, whatever that looks like, even if you're not, I truly implore you to pick that passion back up. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what your circumstances are. Just start doing it again. If you are a writer, just start writing for the sake of writing. If it was baseball, basketball, whatever, pick it. If it was your true passion in life, you don't have to be an all-star pro at it, but just start doing it again.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know, just because you find an excuse as to why not to do that, again, mindset, perception,
Yeah.
You can find, for every excuse you have of why you can't do something, whether it's your age, your weight, your race, whatever,
Yeah.
you can find somebody, another individual who actually did what you're trying to do
Hell,
with that same
YouTube.
problem.
YouTube is a great resource nowadays. You need to
Yeah.
learn how to do something.
Yeah.
YouTube that. And then
Find someone who has what you want, do what they do, and you'll get what they got.
And you know what? If you buy a copy of the Big Bitter book, How to Stay Bitter and Resentful, it's riddled with spelling errors, formatting errors. Dude, I just had to get it out there as the first thing I've written in 15 years.
So cool.
And I implore you don't have to be great at it. Just pick your thing back up again and just run with it.
Well, there you guys, you have it. So yeah, search that up on Amazon. Help get this book out there for Ian. Do me a favor and don't become bitter and resentful because of the book.
Or do. Maybe it
or
helps.
maybe you will. Maybe you're already
will.
there. But I think it's a great, like I said, reverse way to get some people that maybe the laughter thing will get them, but maybe, it causes people, and hopefully it causes people to take a little deeper look at, why am I so angry and resentful because if you really diagnose it, and we'll wrap with this, it goes back to living in the past or living the future. And the present is a gift. That's why it's called that.
It's
and
present.
The future's a mystery. Past is history. Today is a gift. We can always do a little better to live that way. And there's no one that does it perfect. I certainly don't. But I try to bring myself back as much as I can. And it was really good having you on the show, dude.
Oh yeah.
I think people are going to get a good laugh out of this, and hopefully hear one thing you can take from today's show and implement that in your daily life for better quality living. I like how that was the underlying thread. So thanks again, man, for being on here.
Thanks
I
for
appreciate
having
it.
me, brother. This was great. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Let's Do More. I hope you found inspiration, hope, and some powerful takeaways to help you on your own journey of growth and resilience. Remember, no matter what you're facing, you have the strength to overcome it and the power to create positive change in your life and community. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, download, and review the podcast. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories. And don't forget to follow us on social media and stay connected and be part of the Let's Do More community. You can find us on Facebook at Let's Do More Podcast, Instagram and TikTok at Let's Do More.life, X at Let's Do More Life, and our primary channel is on YouTube at Let's Do More. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, share your stories, or let us know what topics you'd like to hear about next. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, remember, let's keep pushing forward, inspiring each other, and doing more for ourselves and the world around us. Take care, and I'll see you on the next show.